الله وبركاته. الحمد لله وكفى وجزاك الله. الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. أما بعد. Last time we had read the overall story of the Hajj of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Tonight inshallah we'll start reading in hadith about individual things in Hajj. So the first thing that we need to know as we are traveling is something called Meeqat. Meeqat is that point before which you have to be in a state of Ihram. You cannot cross that point without being in a state of Ihram if you are intending to do Umrah or Hajj. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he clearly mentioned those points. And the reason is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His house is a very honorable place. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wishes, the intent behind making people put on ihram and go in that particular state is that people show their humility when they come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we are going to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we leave behind all of our arrogance, all fancy clothing, anything of adornment, anything of decoration on our bodies, we leave it behind, and we put on very simple clothing, both for men and women. And for men, in fact, something that we cannot even put on is any stitched clothing. So basically only two sheets we wrap around, one on the lower part of the body, one on the upper part of the body, and that's the dress of a Haji or a Mu'tamir, a person who's doing Hajj or doing Umrah. As I was mentioning in a Friday lecture, like previous Friday lecture, not today, that this command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and any other command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to listen to it and we have to obey it, even if it makes sense to us or not, even if we see any reason behind it or not. So the first and the foremost thing is that we understand, if it is the command of my Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is the sunnah of my Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is how we'll do it. We may or we may not understand the logic behind it, we may not or may not understand the benefits behind it, but the first and the foremost thing, which is dictated by abdiyat, us being slaves, is that we will listen and do as the master tells us. This is the core of abdiyat. Hadaki Mullah Nawaz Shah Thani rahmatullahi used to explain it. It's a funny sentence that nobody wants to be a slave today. These days, आजकल कोई बंदा नहीं बनना चाहता. Nobody wants to be a slave these days. Everybody wants to become God. हर एक खुदा बनना चाहता है. Nobody wants to become a slave. What is the meaning? That you want to understand the perspective and the logic and the wisdom that Allah has behind those commands, and you want to understand from God's perspective, and you are a slave. How is that possible? So being a slave, we just have to say, Ya Allah, we have heard, sami'na wa ata'na, and Ya Allah, we will do as you have told us. So this is the first thing that we should understand. But of course, the ulama, there's things that come to mind that this might be a wisdom behind it, another wisdom might be behind it, different kinds of points of virtuous points and beneficial points. So this is one thing that ulama have written, that even before you reach the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you take off all sorts of arrogance, all shapes and forms of arrogance. In fact, all sorts of adornment is also taken away. So even perfume, fragrance, which is really preferred on a Muslim, and it's a sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it increases the reward of coming to the masjid when you put on fragrance before you come to the masjid. It attracts good souls towards you, all of those virtues. But in the state of ihram, even if deliberately you put a single drop of fragrance, it is not allowed. It is totally forbidden. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from all sorts of disobedience. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to come in very simple and very basically stripped of all sort of honor. That we are, Ya Allah, we are coming to your house, we are very simple, we are basically nothing. And to show this nothingness is to put on the ihram, the state of ihram, and there's particular rulings about it. So for men, 2 plain sheets, unstitched, no fragrance, no shaving or taking the hair off of the body. All of those things, they are forbidden. For women, it is allowed that they can wear stitched clothing, but again, no fragrance, and all the other rulings are pretty much the same. So, ihram, the other thing that we should understand is that ihram is not the name of a dress, it is the name of a state. Ihram has come from the word haram. Things become forbidden, that state in which you are in a state that there is restrictions placed upon you. So not only that clothing, but also all sorts of restrictions. No fighting, no arguing with people, no hunting, no taking the hair off, any beautification of the body, any fragrance, none of those things are allowed. The way to put on ihram is, the sunnah way is that a person prays 2 rakat and then either makes a formal intention with their tongue of whatever they are going for, umrah or hajj, and the words of intention are very simple, that Ya Allah, I intend to do umrah, or Ya Allah, I intend to do hajj, so make it easy for me and accept it from me. And then we say the talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik, la sharika laka labbaik, innal hamda wa ni'mata laka wal mulk, la sharika lak. That is when we are in the state of ihram. Now we are a muhrim. Now we are a person who has many restrictions that have applied to us. And this is where the hajj starts. So now this is technically this is supposed to be done at the one of the points mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, which are, the plural is mawaqit, singular is miqat. And the first hadith that we are going to read, the first 2 hadiths, they mention those points. عن ابن عباس قال وقت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لأهل المدينة ذا الحليفة ولأهل الشام الجحفة ولأهل نجد قرن المنازل ولأهل اليمن يلملم فهن لهن ولمن أتى عليهن من غير أهلهن لمن كان يريد الحج والعمرة فمن كان دونهن فمهله من أهله وكذلك وكذاك حتى أهل مكة يهلون منها. حضرت سیدنا عبداللہ ابن عباس رضی اللہ عنہ سے روایت ہے کہ رسول کریم صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم نے ذوالحلیفہ کو اہل مدینہ کا میقات مقرر فرمایا، اور جحفہ کو اہل شام کا، اور قرن المنازل کو اہل نجد کا، اور یلملم کو اہل یمن کا. بس یہ چاروں مقامات خود ان کے رہنے والوں کے لیے میقات ہیں، اور ان سب لوگوں کے لیے بھی جو دوسرے علاقوں سے ان مقامات پر ہوتے ہوئے آئیں جن کا ارادہ حج یا عمرے کا ہو. بس جو لوگ ان مقامات کے ورے ہوں، یعنی ان مقامات اور ان مقامات سے مکہ معظمہ کی طرف رہنے والے ہوں، تو وہ اپنے گھر ہی سے احرام باندھیں گے، اور یہ قاعدہ اسی طرح چلے گا یہاں تک کہ خاص مکہ کے رہنے والے مکہ ہی سے احرام باندھیں گے. Narrated by Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam appointed Dhul Hulayfa, which is the name of a place, as the miqat, the place to put on ihram, to become muhrim for the people of Medina, and Juhfa for the people of Sham, and Qarn al-Manazil for the people of Najd, and Yalamlam for the people of Yemen. So these 4 spots or places are for the people who live in those places, and for all those people who come with the intention of Hajj and Umrah from one of these places. And those people who are between these places and Makkah Mukarramah, then they will put on ihram, enter the state of ihram from their places. And this will apply until that the people of Makkah itself will put on ihram from within Makkah itself. عن جابر عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال محل أهل المدينة من ذي الحليفة والطريق الآخر الجحفة ومحل أهل العراق من ذات عرق ومحل أهل نجد قرن ومحل أهل اليمن يلملم. Yalamlam. So basically the same hadith, it only mentions one more miqat, which is for the people of Iraq, it is Dhati Irq. So Makkah, if it's right here, Yemen is in the south. So the people who are coming from Yemen, there is this station which is roughly 40 to 50 miles from Makkah itself, called Yalamlam. All people who are coming from south and southeast and southwest, as soon as they cross that Yalamlam, the boundary of Yalamlam, they have to be in a state of ihram. So this basically applies to the people of Yemen pretty much, or the part of Saudi who live south of Yalamlam or Yalamlam itself. These people, when they travel to Medina or Makkah, generally by land or even by air, when they cross this part, this line, they have to be in a state of ihram before that. For us, most applicable for most of the world, basically air travel happens to Jeddah or Medina, and before entering Jeddah, the miqat that applies to us generally is Juhfa. Juhfa is just a little north of Jeddah. So just before landing at Jeddah, generally, if the flight is going to Jeddah, 90% of the people are there for Umrah. They are going for Umrah, especially if it's an international flight, which generally it is if you are going. And it is basically, generally, the crew announces. If it's a Muslim airline, generally it is a Muslim airline, they announce that this is the point where we are crossing miqat, so you should be in a state of ihram. So now one thing that we should remember is that it is the mercy of Prophet ﷺ that he did not decree that before you leave your house, wherever you live in the world, you have to put on ihram. Because if he did so, we would have to do that, but it would be very difficult. Because ihram, especially if we do not have a lot of practice, we are not used to that kind of clothing. So it is kind of hard to handle it. Also, doing the natural things that we have to do, then in that part of that kind of clothing, it takes some practice. So the Prophet ﷺ made it easy that he appointed these mawaqit, that before coming to this place, you have to be in a state of ihram. Now, if we choose to delay it to the very end, it becomes very hard. Because if you are in a plane, there is restricted amount of bathrooms, limited amount of bathrooms, you cannot basically do that. It's not practical. Generally, it is advised that wherever you are transiting from, put on ihram at that time, and then you can read two nawafil, which is sunnah. You can do so as the plane is entering the miqat, or in fact, if your flight is short and you feel comfortable, then you can do so before the flight starts as well. But if you try to delay it at the very end, then it is possible that you'll have to give them, because it is a very short time and you do not get chance to put on ihram and do all those things right at that time. So it is recommended that we do it before. So anyway, one point is Yalamlam for the people of south, then the people who are coming from Sham, which is practically in north, and people of Iraq, which is also in north. The Prophet ﷺ has mentioned these 2 points, Juhfa and Dhati Irq. Now all these 3 places, they are roughly 40 to 50, maybe 60 miles from Makkah. But the people of Medina, they have a special honor, although they are pretty much coming from the same direction as well. But the people of Medina, they have a special honor that their miqat is 100 miles from Makkah. Right outside of Medina, as soon as you leave Medina, the miqat Zul Hulayfa is right there, and the Prophet ﷺ honored the people of Medina because the people of Medina, they are the standard of deen. They are the ones who, till eternity, till the end of time, Allah will preserve deen there, and these people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has selected them. They are willing to sacrifice more for deen, struggle more in deen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored them with 100 miles of miqat, which is that they have to put on ihram right as they leave their city, and then 100 miles they travel in the desert in miqat, in the state of ihram. They are in miqat. Okay, so these 2 hadiths cover miqat, and these 5 stations, they are muttafaqun alayh, agreed upon by the ummah, that these are the 5 stations, and the government, may Allah give them good hidayah, good tawfiq, they have marked those places, they have built huge masjids at that place, and they have provided full facilities, so people, if they are traveling by land, they can they can put on ihram. I'm sorry, Zul Hulayfa is 200 miles from Makkah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them roughly 250 miles of Meeqat from Medina for the people who are coming from Medina. And Abdullah, now we read about the dress of ihram. And Abdullah ibn Umar أن رجلا سأل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما يلبس المحرم من الثياب فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تلبس القميص ولا العمائم ولا السراويلات ولا البرانس ولا الخفاف إلا أحد لا يجد النعلين فيلبس الخفين وليقطعهما أسفل من الكعبين ولا تلبسوا من الثياب شيئا مسه زعفران ولا ورس. हज़रत अब्दुल्लाह इब्न उमर रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु से रिवायत है, बयान फरमाते हैं कि एक शख्स ने रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम से दरियाफ़्त किया कि मुहरिम यानी जो शख्स हज या उम्रे का ihram बांधे क्या क्या कपड़े पहन सकता है। आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने जवाब दिया कि हालत ihram में ना तो कुर्ता कमीज़ पहनो, न सर पर अमामा, न शलवार पजामा पहनो और न बारानी पहनो और न पाँव में मोज़े पहनो, सिवाय इसके कि किसी आदमी के पास पहनने के लिए कोई चप्पल जूता ना हो तो वो मजबूरन पाँव की हिफाजत के लिए मोज़े पहन ले और उनको टखनों के नीचे से काट कर जूता सा बना ले। आगे आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने फरमाया कि हालत ihram में ऐसा भी कोई कपड़ा ना पहनो जिसको ज़ाफ़रान या वर्स लगा हुआ हो। Narrated by Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anh that a person came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and asked that what can a person who is wearing ihram, who is in state of ihram, can wear. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam answered that do not wear any stitched basically shirt, kurta, qameez. Do not put on any amama on the head. The head cannot be covered in the state of ihram. Neither wear any stitched lower, which is shalwar or pajama, whatever. Neither put on any barani, which is something over any sort of coat or overcoat. And do not wear any socks except for that person who does not have any kind of footwear. Then they, as a form of, because of compulsion, they can wear, because of need they can wear sock, but they should cut those from under the ankles and make them like a shoe. And do not wear anything, any cloth that has za'fran or wars. Za'fran is a fragrance and wars is also a fragrance. The one thing that Hazrat has mentioned here is that sometimes the question is asked in a certain format and the answer is better given in a different format. This person was asking, Ya Rasulullah, what can we wear? The Prophet ﷺ is telling them, do not wear this. Because the word ihram is basically about restrictions. The Prophet ﷺ is telling this and this and this and this is not allowed. Anything apart from that is allowed. So therefore, unstitched clothing, now the color could be anything. It is preferable to wear white, but it could be any kind of color. Similarly, it should be simpler and plain colors, it's better. The other thing is that the fabric could be, it does not have to be necessarily a general people wear of tweed or that fabric that we make towels from. It's not necessary. Any fabric that a person feels comfortable in, they can use. About footwear, socks are not allowed, but the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that if somebody is so poor that he does not have anything to protect their feet, then they can wear socks. But when they are wearing socks, they have to cut those from under the ankles to make sure that it fulfills the requirements of ihram. And inshallah, when we go for Hajj or Umrah, we should consult the ulama to exactly find out what kind of footwear can we wear. General rule is that this bone on the top of the foot should be exposed, this bone. The two ankles should be exposed and the part behind it. And then inshallah, of course, generally what we do is that whatever we are planning to wear, we ask the ulama, show it to ulama that this is what we are planning to wear, and if they allow it, then we wear. عن ابن عمر أنه سمع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ينهى النساء في إحرامهن عن القفازين والنقاب وما مس الورس والزعفران من الثياب ولتلبس بعد ذلك ما أحبت من ألوان الثياب معصفر औ खज़्ज़िन औ हुलिय्यिन औ सरावील औ क़मीसिन औ खुफ़्फ़िन। ये हदीस औरतों के इहराम के बारे में हज़रत अब्दुल्ला इब्न उमर रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु से रिवायत है। फरमाते हैं कि मैंने रसूलुल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम से सुना, आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम फरमाते हैं औरतों को इहराम की हालत में दस्ताने पहनने और चेहरे पर नकाब डालने और उन कपड़ों के इस्तेमाल से जिनको ज़ाफ़रान या वर्स लगी हो, और उनके अलावा जो रंगीन कपड़े वो चाहें पहन सकती हैं। कुस्मी कपड़ा हो या रेशमी, इसी तरह वो चाहें तो जेवर भी पहन सकती हैं और शलवार और कमीज़ और मोज़े भी पहन सकती हैं। So this hadith, we'll read the translation inshallah. As Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu has narrated, he says that I have heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saying that women are forbidden to wear gloves and put niqab, which is a covering that covers face, on the face, and those kind of clothing, those dresses that might have any fragrance, za'afran or worse, or any fragrance, that is forbidden. And beyond that, if they want to wear colored clothing, whatever fabric basically they want to wear, that is allowed. They can also put on jewelry, and they can also wear stitched clothing, shalwar and qameez, and also wear socks. So from this hadith we learned, first thing is that the restriction to wear stitched clothing is only for men. But the other thing that we should know is that even women are not allowed to wear gloves or put on niqab. Niqab is that we all understand that that's that covering of the face. So the one thing that we should note is, there's two things that we should understand. Number one, when the Prophet ﷺ forbids wearing niqab, that means that women in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, Sahabiyat, did usually wear niqab. Otherwise, the Prophet ﷺ, if it was not part of the regular dressing, the Prophet ﷺ would not specifically forbid it. That when you are in a state of ihram, do not wear niqab. Just like our some friends, they ghair muqallid friends, they do not like to wear, they do not cover their head, saying that this is not a sunnah. Na'udhu billah. There is a narration of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu that he took off the amama and then led the prayer. And there's some other narration about the Sahaba as well. So the reason they did it was that they were showing that salah is valid even if your head is not covering. So the Sahaba, the general attitude of Sahaba was that they would always have their head covered. That is why he wanted to correct one thing, that don't think that prayer is not valid if your head is not covered. This is what they were trying to teach. So what we understand from this is that the routine of Sahaba, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was to have their head always covered. Similarly, when the Prophet ﷺ is expressly, clearly mentioning a particular part of dressing, then that was part of the dressing of the Sahabiyat. So the face covering is required. But the thing is, coming back to what I started with, when there is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we feel that we are weak and we cannot fulfill it, do not try to change deen. If you cannot change yourself, at least do not try to change deen either. Dr. Arifi rahmatullahi alayhi, may Allah bless his soul, he used to say कि भाई जो भी काम करते हो एक दफ़ा देख तो लो कि शरीयत में उसका हुक्म क्या है, शरीयत में उसको जायज़ कहा है या हराम कहा है. फिर अगर जायज़ कहा है और तुम करते हो तो करते रहो, और अगर शरीयत ने मना किया है, अगर ममनू का है, हराम का है, फिर भी तुम करते हो तो करते रहो, लेकिन गुनाह समझ के करो. कम अज़ कम उसको गुनाह समझ के करो, क्योंकि जो गुनाह समझ के गुनाह करता है उसको एक दिन तौबा की तौफीक हो जाती है. जो बहुत बड़ा फितना आजकल के और बल्कि हर दौर में ही था ये, कि ये जो बातें फैलाई जाती हैं कि दीन को चेंज कर दो, दीन को बदल दो, लोगों को ये समझाओ कि ये अल्लाह का हुक्म है ही नहीं सिरे से, ख़ुद करना नहीं चाह रहे, और ज़ाहिर है कि दीन कुछ ना कोई पाबंदियाँ लगाता है और पाबंदी कभी तबीयत को कबूल करने में मुश्किल होती है. तो उसका एक तरीक़ा ये निकाला है कि दीन की बातों को मस्क करके पेश करो. उससे होता ये है कि इंसान वो काम करता भी है और उसको गुनाह भी नहीं समझता कि भाई फ़लाँ स्कॉलर साहब ने हमें यूट्यूब पे बताया है कि ये जो है ये मना नहीं है, इसकी ये इसी तरह है. अल्लाह ताला माफ़ फरमा दे. बेहयाई के अमाल भी आजकल आपको इंटरनेट पे ऐसे मुफस्सिर भी मिल जाएंगे जो गैर कुदरती गैर फितरी अमल जो आजकल फैलता जा रहा है उसके भी जवाज़ के फतवे निकाल रहे हैं, और कुरान शरीफ की उसी आयत से निकाल रहे हैं जिससे बताया जाता है कि ये इंतहाई अल्लाह का मबगूज़ अमल है। उसी आयत से वो फतवा निकाल के दे रहे हैं कि नहीं वो ज़बरदस्ती होता था, अगर बिल रज़ा हो तो उसकी इजाज़त दी है। नऊज़ुबिल्लाह। ये आप बताइए कि जो लोग ऐसे स्कॉलर्स की बातें सुनेंगे कभी ज़िंदगी में तौबा करेंगे? वो ख़ुद भी जहन्नम में जाएंगे और उनको भी जहन्नम में लेके जाएंगे। अल्लाह ताला महफूज़ फरमाए। बहरहाल what I was saying is that we learn from this hadith and many others that face covering the face for women is a requirement of deen. When we are not able to do something, we should at least not change the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We should say that we are weak. Ya Allah, we are weak. We will try and we will do this. Until we are able to do this, we'll keep on repenting, we'll keep on doing istighfar. But do not change the command of Allah. Do not change the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If we go the route of changing the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and mutilating it to fit our needs and our desires, then we will follow our desires, live a life of sin and never repent. Because we will think that this is deen. This is what Allah has told us. And then we'll never come back. So therefore, Dr. Abdul Arifi Rahmatullahi Alayhi, my great grand Sheikh, he used to say that, bhai, whatever you are doing, whatever you are habitual of doing, at least first find out what does Allah and His Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Shariat, what do they say about it. Now, if it is permissible, fine, go ahead and do it. If you find out that it is haram and impermissible, and you still want to do it, but do it thinking that, knowing that it is a sin, that I am doing wrong. If you have this in your heart, inshallah one day you will repent. Inshallah one day you will come back. But if you do it thinking and being confident that this is my right, this is what Allah has told me to do, then you are never coming back. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. And again, this goes back to being abd. Being abdiyat is, the essence of abdiyat is that you listen and do as you have been told. Allah. Anyway, so the other thing is that even in the state of ihram, it is not that women can show their face to those who are not mahram, who are not their relatives to which they can show their face, because there is a narration of her Sayyidah Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu anha. She says that we were in Hajj with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and we were in the state of ihram. So, because when you are in a state of ihram, we've read in hadith that the Prophet ﷺ has forbidden the covering of the face in a state of ihram for women. So now, what did they used to do? And they are with the Prophet ﷺ. When a sahabi or a sahabiya does something when they are with the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ either sees them or gets knowledge of them doing it and either encourages it or remains quiet. It becomes part of sunnah. Unless the Prophet ﷺ says, no, you did something wrong, it becomes part of sunnah. So Sayyidah Aisha is saying that when we will feel or note that some man is coming or some men are coming, we will lower a cloth in front of our face in such a way that it would not touch our face. We will extend it like this. So our face will remain hidden. When they will pass, then we will lift that cloth again. So from this we understand again both of those things, that for women to cover their face is required and part of deen, and in a state of ihram it is also necessary to do parda, to hide yourself and your face, but it cannot touch the face. So when there is men coming, then Aisha Siddiqa radiyallahu anha, the way she has mentioned, that they would cover their face by extending and hanging something in front of their face. Okay. عن زيد بن ثابت أنه رأى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم تجرد لأهلاله واغتسل. ज़ैद इब्न साबित रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु से रिवायत है कि उन्होंने हुज़ूर अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम को देखा कि आप सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम ने कपड़े उतारे और गुस्ल फरमाया ihram बांधने के लिए. It is narrated from Sayyidina Zayd ibn Sabit radiallahu anh that he's narrated that he saw the Prophet ﷺ took off his clothes and washed himself, and then he did it for putting on the ihram. So this is the reason why ulama have said that before putting on ihram, it is a sunnah to do ghusl, to wash your body in the Islamic way. But if somebody prays 2 rakat of ihram even with just wuzu, without full ghusl, if they are in a state of purity and they do wuzu and then they put on ihram, then that is also enough. But sunnah ways, the better ways, that you do full ghusl and then put on the ihram. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. शेख की मोहब्बत में तकरीबन 3-4 महीने पहले अल्लाह ताला ने दिए थे, अता किए थे, और फिर बाज़ लोगों ने उसको देख के फिर समझा कि नात पे भी सादिक़ आते हैं, तो अपने अपने मिजाज के तहत यकीनन ये नात शरीफ के भी अशार समझे जा सकते हैं। ये पेश कर रहा हूँ इंशाअल्लाह। दुरूद शरीफ पढ़ लीजिए। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला सय्यिदिना मौलाना मुहम्मद व अला आलिहि व सहबिहि व बारक व सल्लम तस्लीमन कसीरन कसीरा। वक्त तो है, इंशाअल्लाह उर्दू में साथ साथ समझा भी दूँगा, कुछ अल्फाज शायद मुश्किल हो। जो चाहे वो अपने शेख का तसव्वुर कर ले, और जो चाहे वो हुज़ूर अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का तसव्वुर कर ले। अपने अपने ताल्लुक़, अपने अपने मिजाज की बात है। रहनुमा रहनुमा तेरी उल्फत से क्या ना मिला, रहनुमा रहनुमा तेरी उल्फत से क्या ना मिला, जज्बे होश रुबा होश आलम कुशा, जज्बे होश रुबा होश आलम कुशा। रहनुमा से मुराद है रास्ता दिखाने वाला। हुज़ूर अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की मोहब्बत, हमारे मशाइख की मोहब्बत, उनकी उल्फत, यही वो वाहिद चीज़ है जो हमको अल्लाह ताला से करीब करती है। उनकी दुआएं, उनमें हमारा शामिल हो जाना, ये वो चीज़ है जो हमें अल्लाह ताला की तरफ से जज्ब इनायत करता है। जज्ब कहते हैं अल्लाह ताला की खींचने को, कि अल्लाह ताला ख़ुद अपनी क़ुव्वत से हमें अपनी जानिब खींचे, अपने रास्ते पर चलाएँ। ये हमारे मशाइख और हमारे बुज़ुर्गों और हमारे नबी करीम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम की दुआओं से मुमकिन हुआ है। और उस जो जज्ब की वजह से हमारे होश उड़ जाते हैं। अल्लाह ताला के एहसान है कि अल्लाह ने हमको ऐसा जज्ब इनायत फरमाया कि जिसकी वजह से होश, उमूमन सीधे से माने इसके ये हैं कि होश कहते हैं दुनिया के नफ़े को समझना, दुनिया के नुकसान को समझना। तो जिस चीज़ को दुनिया नफ़ा समझती है और जिस चीज़ को दुनिया नुकसान समझती है, उसका होश जाता रहा, और दीन का नफ़ा और दीन का नुकसान उनको समझाता रहा। तो होश आलम कुशा, यानी ऐसा होश अता किया अल्लाह ताला ने, ऐसी समझदारी अता की कि जिससे दुनिया की हकीकत खुली। और ये सब कुछ हुआ मुमकिन हमारे शेख की दुआओं से। रहनुमा तेरी उल्फत से क्या कुछ मिला, जज्बे होश रुबा होश आलम कुशा, रिंद तेरी शराबे कोहन के हुए, रिंद तेरी शराबे कोहन के हुए, बासफा बासफा अतकिया मुक्तदा औलिया, रिंद तेरी शराबे कोहन के हुए, बासफा अतकिया मुक्तदा औलिया। रिंद कहते हैं बहुत ज़्यादा पीने वाले को, बहुत ज़्यादा पीता हूँ। और शराब पे कौन, दरअसल सूफिया शराब पे कौन कहते हैं, मुराद ईमान होता है कि पुरानी शराब है, वही है, कोई ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह 1400 साल से चला आ रहा है, लेकिन वो शराब कौन सी बनाती होती कि जो शराब जितनी पुरानी होती जाती है उसका मज़ा उतना बढ़ता जाता है। मैंने पी नहीं है, लेकिन किताब में पढ़ा, और शायद में शराब कौन इस्तेमाल किया जाता है, उससे बुरादी होती है कि वो जितनी ज़्यादा एज होती है उतना ज़्यादा उसका नशा भी बढ़ता है। ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह दरअसल ऐसी चीज़ है कि जितना आप उसमें दाखिल होते जाएं, जितना उसको सोचते जाएं, उतना उसका मज़ा, उसका लुत्फ़, उसकी समझ आपकी बढ़ती जाती है, अल्लाह का ताल्लुक़ बढ़ता जाता है। और बासफ़ा अत्किया मुक़्तदा औलिया, साफ़ सुथरे पाकीज़ा लोग, अत्किया तक़वे वाले लोग, मुक़्तदा कौमों की दीनी रहनुमाई करने वाले औलिया, ये सब दरअसल रिंद होते हैं, अल्लाह ताला की मोहब्बत की शराब पीने वाले होते हैं, ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह की पीने वाले होते हैं। और दूसरा मतलब इस शेर का ये भी हो सकता है कि ये सारे इतने साफ़ सुथरे लोग भी जो बड़े अपनी सफाई सुथराई में बड़े ऊँचे थे, बिलाखिर वो शेख के सामने आकर जब उनको ला इलाहा इल्लल्लाह मुहम्मद रसूलुल्लाह की पिलाई गई तो वो रिंद बन गए। रिंद तेरी शराब कोहन के हुए, बासफ़ा अत्किया मुक़्तदा औलिया, रिंद तेरी शराब कोहन के हुए, बासफ़ा अत्किया मुक़्तदा औलिया, और तेरे हाथों की कासागरी बाखुदा, कासागरी कहते हैं मिट्टी के, ऐसा शेप दे देना कि काम का बर्तन बन जाए वो। तेरे हाथों की कासागरी बाखुदा, पे करे कमनुमा फ़ख्रे सात आसमां, तेरे हाथों की कासागरी बाखुदा, पे करे कमनुमा फ़ख्रे सात आसमां। इस शेर के पीछे मेरे जहन में वो हज़रत अबू ज़र ग़िफ़ारी रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु के मुताबिक रिवायत मिलती है कि मुहतरम रहमतुल्लाह अलैह सुनाया करते थे। हज़रत अबू ज़र ग़िफ़ारी, रिपीट दिस इन इंग्लिश, हज़रत अबू ज़र ग़िफ़ारी रज़ियल्लाहु अन्हु was coming in, Jibreel alayhi salam was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Jibreel alayhi salam said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that this is Abu Zar coming. This person who's coming, he is Abu Zar. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in an amazement, he asked that, how do you know about Abu Zar? He's a human being, he lives on this earth. How do you know about Abu Zar? He said he is better known in the skies than on the earth. Huwa ashharu indana min indik. He is better known, he is well known among us than you. And when the Prophet ﷺ asked that, why is it that? He said, Lisigrihi. He is better known because of his humility, because of his humble nature. Walitilawati Suratul Ikhlas, and he recites Surah Ikhlas excessively. So the Prophet ﷺ trained people in such a way, and our Mashayikh also trained people in such a way, that they do not look like, and there's much other things behind it. एक वो हज़रत थानवी ने भी एक बात लिखी है कि जितना बनता जाता है उतना उसके अंदर से शोशा ख़त्म होती जाती है और बिल्कुल आम आदमी की तरह बनता जाता है वो शख्स। जितना तरबियत, ये जो तलवीन के मराहिल होते हैं कि उसकी मिसाल में अपने ताल्लुक़ वालों को उस तरह देता हूँ, किसी ने अगर somebody has learned to swim and they're a new person, when they're starting to swim they create a lot of splash, but when they become a pro then they swim very quietly. So those people, however, in the ma'rifah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as you increase, you become a very normal person, you appear a very normal person as well. पे करे कमनुमा फ़ख्रे सात आसमां, और खाके नम में तेरी डूब कर बन गए, खाके नम में तेरी डूब कर बन गए, तुख्म बे आसरा शजरे साया गुना। एक बीज जब तक बिल्कुल एक बीज होता है, a seed, a small seed, as long as it's a seed, it is being drifted away by the winds, it's going here and there and it has no station, no grounding. But when it goes and humiliates itself around their sheikh, and this is what the Sahaba did around the Prophet ﷺ, that they finished themselves in the marzi, in the will of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They submerged themselves in this wet, rich soil, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them such that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said about his Sahaba that you pick any one of them and you follow, you will be rightly guided. So those seeds, as Salman Farsi radiallahu anhu, we hear about him, that he spent such a major part of his life going from here to there to there to there in search of truth. He was valueless, but Allah made him the Sahabi of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he finished himself in the will of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah made him a tree full of shade. A seed that was flying here and there now became a tree itself that is giving shade to others. So this is the way that we look at our lives as well, and we see that how Hakim Akhtar Rahmatullahi alayhi, he used to mention this, that a professor, that's about our father actually, a professor came to me and he said that मैं कटी पतंग की तरह हूँ, मैं चाहता हूँ मुझे अल्लाह वाले लूट लें. I am like a kite that has been cut off from its center. My father, he was going through that phase of his life when his sheikh had passed away, and he was still in the need of, and he was searching for a person to guide him and train him. So he went to his Sheikh Hakim Akhtar Rahmatullahi alayhi and said, मैं कटी पतंग की तरह, I'm like a kite that has lost its thread, and I wish, it is my wish that the people of Allah catch me. And Hazrat liked this so much that he mentioned it in his bayanat elsewhere कि देखो जालिम ने कैसी बात करी. What kind of a thing, what a beautiful sentence this person said. So anyway, मैं अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला में कहता हूँ, अच्छा फिर खाक भी ढूंढ के जाना चाहिए. खाक भी वो ढूंढनी चाहिए जो किसी काम की हो. वहाँ लामा वाल का शेर है ना कि ज़रा नम हो ये मट्टी तो बड़ी ज़रखेज़ है साकी. तो हर मट्टी नम नहीं होती, हर मट्टी ज़रखेज़ नहीं होती. अल्लाह वालों को देख भाल के तलाश करना चाहिए, और ना फ्रॉड और क्वैक्स बहुत है इस फील्ड में. एनीवे, खाके नम में तेरी डूब कर बन गए, खाके नम में तेरी डूब कर बन गए, तुख्म बे आसरा शजरे साया कोना, और वो के आजिज है जिसके बयां से जुबान, वो के आजिज है जिसके बयां से जुबान, तेरा लुत्फ़े नेहा तेरा कारे गिरा, तेरा लुत्फ़े नेहा तेरा कारे गिरा. हुज़ूर अकरम सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम के बाद कंधों पर, the shoulders of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there was the responsibility of the whole ummah. He had so many challenges, and in that short time he had to do all of those things. He felt the pressure, but at the same time his dealing, अब हमारे ऊपर भी responsibility पड़ जाए, so we don't even want to talk to people, right? He's wasting my time. And what we hear about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, an ignorant person comes and puts their shawl around the neck of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and pulls it and hurts the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks to him nicely. Somebody comes demanding their debt and says bad things to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Still the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is dealing with them very nicely. हमको कोई मर्तबा, कोई इज्जत, कोई मकाम मिल जाए तो हम लोगों को समझते हैं कि हमारे पास वक्त ही नहीं है लोगों के लिए. And imagine the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had the responsibility of the whole wide world on him, and still he was so nice to people. And his lutf ऐसा था उनका, he was so latif to people, he was so soft and tender to people. And this is pretty much the case of our mashayikh as well, that they are doing such a great, the scale of work that they are doing, and the kind that what is going on, if you go closer to them and you find out, you look at their life. The first time I went to the majlis of my sheikh, I thought that basically it is me, my brother, and a few other people, and he is totally, he's giving us full attention. He's, in fact, when it is time to come for, it is time for lunch, he's going inside and himself bringing the food, because he does not have any people who can help him out at that time. He brings out and sets the food for us and everything. The next time when we went, so he had dedicated that time for us, and he was giving us his full. The next time was not so planned, if I remember correct, and constantly his phone was ringing. He was picking those phones up, calls up, and apologizing to people that I'm with some guest. That gave me an idea that this person is very busy, but he's giving me his full. He's giving me his time and making me feel that I am the most important person right now. So anyway, this is the way of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam as well. We read about it in Surah Al-Akram. This is the way of our Mashayikh as well, that the kind of burden that they have, you will not be able to tell by looking at them. When you deal with them, they will deal so gently with you, so politely with you. They will give you such a lot of attention. You will feel that this is a free person. He does not have anything to do in this world. But when you look closer and find out about their life, they've got so much going on. वो के आजिज़ है जिसके बयां से ज़ुबान, वो के आजिज़ है जिसके बयां से ज़ुबान, तेरा लुत्फ़े नेहा तेरा कारेगिरां। अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला सय्यिदिना मुहम्मद व अला आलिहि व सहबिहि अजमईन। اللهم لا مانع لما أعطيت ولا معطي لما منعت ولا ينفع ذا الجد منك الجد. رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. لا إله إلا الله الحليم الكريم. سبحان الله رب العرش العظيم والحمد لله رب العالمين. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. وصلي وسلم على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. آمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. To keep your mic in your hand and making dua is permissible. To lead prayer with a physical mic in your hand is not permissible. You will see, you will go to some masajid where based on the need, some aimma will hold the mic in their hand, and unfortunately I've had this bad fate of seeing and praying behind certain aimma who led the prayer and their mics were there in their hand. You have to repeat your salah after that if they do so. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen.